Hello, hello, I'm Jordan, and this is Andalusia Knits, my YouTube channel where I talk about all things knitting. And today I want to have a discussion about how to care for your hand knit socks so that they last as long as possible. Now, if you have been around the channel for a while now, you may already know that I have a ton of thoughts and a ton of discussions about making socks that last, making socks that are durable. Because out of everything we knit, at least in my personal experience, nothing wears out faster or harder than a pair of socks. And it makes total sense, like we're putting them on the bottoms of our feet and walking around on them. Of course, they're breaking down quickly. And so I am always on the quest for ways to make my socks more durable. And in my previous videos, I've talked a lot about like the pre-knitting process and the knitting process of socks. So like what kind of yarn do you want to use? How are you going to knit the socks? But today I want to focus on what happens after the knitting is done. How do you care for your socks after they have been complete so that they last as long as possible? And so I have broken up this information into three sections. We're going to talk about washing your socks, we're going to talk about wearing your socks, and we're going to talk about repairing your socks. And so that is going to cover all of the big bases about, okay, my socks are knit, now how do I take care of them so that they last as long as possible? I just want to emphasize before we get started, because there have been some like controversial tips and advice in my previous videos, I am not going to sit here and try to sell you that my way is the one true way to care for your socks. Now, I will go through at different points in the video my own personal preferences for how I care for my socks, but for this video and for my teaching about socks in general, I don't ever want it to seem like I am telling you the right way to do things and you need to follow exactly what I'm doing if you want to succeed. Instead, knitting is a lot about like trade-offs. Like there's no like one perfect way to do anything in knitting, and that includes creating durable socks. And so what I really want to do with this video is just make you more aware of the trade-offs, make you more aware of your options, and then like talk you through those different options, and so that you can better see like which of these choices and which of these ways of doing things is going to be best for your own like goals and your own desires for your knitting. So I'll just get that out of the way now. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to do anything exactly. I'm just sharing my experiences, and I'm sharing, my personal way of doing things, but I also want to take a bigger look at the big picture of the different options and different ways for doing things. One last thing before we begin. So I have spent a lot of time on this channel talking about socks and how to make them last. This is fully the third full-length video I'm making about this subject. And people have responded really well to these sorts of videos. And so I am currently in the process of taking all of the information that I have learned and that I know about making durable socks and turning that into a pattern and a guide for y'all. And so if that is something that you would like to test in the future, if that is something that you would be interested in hearing updates about in the future, I would highly encourage you to go to my new website, andalusiaknits.com, and sign up for the mailing list, because all of those discussions about the future of this sock pattern and all this sock talk is going to be taking place first and foremost on the mailing list. So if this is stuff that you really love and you don't want to miss that pattern, you don't want to miss updates about this guide and what I'm working on, once again, highly encourage you to go to andalusiaknits.com and sign up for the mailing list, because that is where all of those discussions are going to be taking place. But enough of that. Let's get to today's video now, and let's start talking about how to care for your hand knit socks. Now, your first line of defense in caring for your socks and maintaining their durability is absolutely going to be washing them. So I think it's probably best for us to start here. And I'm going to start out a little bit controversially as well, because the first decision you have to make in terms of how you want to wash your socks is, do you want to machine wash them or do you want to wash them by hand? And if you have watched my other sock videos in the past, you know that I am a little bit of an outlier. I knit my socks with non-superwash wool, which means that they can't go in the washing machine at all, even if I wanted them to. And so I have to hand wash them. And so while I'm absolutely team hand washing, I also think that it is important to keep an open mind, and I'm not going to demonize machine washing your socks because it's absolutely more convenient. But I do just want to point out a couple things in this section. Number one is that convenience of machine washing comes with trade-offs, and I'll talk about some of those trade-offs here in a second. And number two, hand washing your socks is really not as grueling and terrible as it might seem. So at the end of this washing section, after I've talked you through all of your options, I will do a little demonstration of my own particular personal technique for washing my socks, just to demonstrate that it's maybe not as bad as you think. So as far as machine washing, there's no denying it's absolutely more convenient to be able to just like toss your socks in with the rest of your laundry and not have to treat them any differently than anything else that you wear. But it's important to realize that modern day washing machines, they clean primarily through agitation. Now, the hot water, the detergent you use, that is going to come into play in terms of cleaning as well. But the washing machine itself, the mechanism by which the machine itself is cleaning your clothes is through agitation. So that means it's loosening the dirt and the grime and the debris on your clothing by like banging the clothes into one another. If you have a top loading washing machine, there's an arm or in the middle of the thing that's literally called an agitator, whose whole point is to make sure that your clothes are bumping into each other enough that they are getting clean. And while agitation is absolutely very efficient at loosening dirt and debris and grime and stuff like that, it's also pretty understandably pretty hard on your clothes. Even something as pragmatic as socks, like I just don't want it to be in that really highly like active, agitated environment, because that's just going to make the fibers of my sock take a beating more than they have to. Superwash yarn is treated to be put in the washing machine to a certain extent. It can take that beating, but at the same time, like, and this is, a topic for another video, there are limitations to the effects of superwash treatment. And over time, I feel like the superwash yarn doesn't hold up quite as well in the washing machine as it does maybe those first couple washes. The next thing to consider in terms of washing your socks is what kind of detergent do you want to use? And for a long time, my advice would have been use whatever detergent you want. That has no bearing on the durability of your knits. But I was very, very wrong about that. And so while there are several detergents that would make a good choice for washing your socks, there's one particular kind of detergent that is not actively bad for washing your socks. And that is unfortunately like the common big brands that you see at the grocery store, at Target, at Walmart, at places like that. So like your Tides, your Gains, those sorts of things. I do not recommend using these on your wool hand knit socks. And that is because these detergents have been formulated with enzymes that are really good at like lifting the grime and the dirt and the odors off of your clothing and cleaning them. But those enzymes are also inadvertently really good at eating through the protein structures in your wool fiber. So over time, as you wash your socks with these big brand name detergents that you see all over the place, it's actually weakening the fibers in the wool. And so this is not something that's gonna like happen with one wash. It's not like you're dipping your sock in a vat of acid and it's dissolving before your eyes. Like in a pinch, in an emergency, I have used, these regular big name detergents on my wool knits because I didn't have anything else available to me. But it's absolutely something that I would not recommend doing on a regular basis, because over time, the repeated exposure to those enzymes is just gonna weaken the fibers of the wool more and more unnecessarily than they have to be. And it's important to keep in mind that this is only a problem for animal based fibers. So, cotton, synthetics, those sorts of things are not going to be weakened by the enzymes in regular detergents. But that being said, most of the time people are knitting their socks out of wool or some sort of wool blend. And so it does become more of an issue for socks than other kinds of knitwear. For me personally, I go with specialty detergents that are formulated specifically for wool. So things like Eucalan or the detergents that you might see at like a local yarn store. Those are sort of the gold standard. Those are what I go for personally. Just I like that. I know that they're not going to actively harm the wool, but I also know that there are things that are included in these specialty detergents that are going to actively benefit the wool as well. But that being said, you don't have to go fancy. You don't have to go niche and specialty like that as well. Any sort of detergent that is marketed as like wool specific, like Woolite, or any sort of detergent that is marketed as like non-enzyme or enzyme free, those are going to be safe to use on your wool socks as well. Finally, in this section, we need to address the frequency with which you need to wash your socks. And so while it's absolutely possible to wash your socks not enough, when it comes to hand knit wool socks, it's also possible to wash them too much. And so in this washing section, you kind of seen how, like, even when you're making smart choices, even when you're making necessary choices, I mean, your socks have to be washed. There's no getting around that. That there are things that are going to contribute to their wear and tear, regardless of how careful you're being in the washing process. Washing equals wear, and we can minimize the amount of wear, but we can't eliminate it entirely in the washing process. And so you don't want to wash your socks any more than they need to be washed. And thankfully, unlike a lot of our store-bought socks, which are made out of things like cotton or synthetic fibers, wool is a really good fiber in terms of resisting and repelling dirt and odors and that sort of thing, and those sort of like microbial gross things that get attached to our socks. And so if you are washing a store-bought pair of socks after every wear, I would say that is the right move. That's the correct thing to do. But with wool socks specifically, washing them after every single wear, the benefits of washing are going to be dwarfed by the drawbacks of the wear and tear of the washing process. And so for me personally, I am washing my socks, my wool socks, after 2 or 3 wears. I don't want to be washing them after every single wear. A, because it's going to hurt their durability more than it's going to keep them clean, and B, because as a hand washer, that's just going to take up more time to do that process. All right, as promised, I'm showing you where the magic is made. And so when it's time for me to wash my hand knit socks, I whip out the washing pot, which is just this cheap stainless steel pot I bought from Walmart forever ago. And I break out my washing spoon and I get to washing. And from here, it is just a matter of tossing the socks in the pot and using the spoon to push them down into the water because I've got really hot water going on in here. I don't want to actually touch it. And I'm just going to hold them under until the bubbles stop. And from there, I will let them chill out in the soak until the water gets cool enough that I can actually put my hands in it. All right. Now I have pulled out the socks from the water and it's time to dry them. And this process is probably going to look pretty familiar to anyone who has ever hand washed any of their knitting. So basically I got the socks laid out on a towel right now, and I am going to roll this towel up now and I'm going to step on it to squish out as much water as possible. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with one hand holding the camera, so I will meet you back when everything is rolled and squashed. All right, the socks have been rolled up and now it's just a matter of stepping onto here and giving them a little squish. It's kind of strangely hard to do balancing a camera as well. I'm a little shocked. But they just need a couple passes like that. And let's see if I can unroll this now. There we go. All right. Right, there we go. Ready to dry. And now I have moved them to a blocking mat where they are going to lie flat to dry for the next day or so. And that is the gist of my washing process. Now let's take a look at how we wear our socks. And so, like I mentioned in the introduction, if you want a truly perfectly pair of durable socks, you're just going to have to never wear them. And presumably, you do want to get some use out of yours. So it pays to like think about a couple things and how you can sort of reduce the wear and tear on your socks as you wear them. And so the first thing that is going to impact their durability is the frequency with which you wear them. And this is pretty common sense. Basically, everything in the world functions by this principle. The more you use a thing, the more it's going to break down, the more it's going to wear down. And socks are no exception to that rule. And so, honestly, one of the best ways to reduce the wear and tear on any individual pair of socks is to just include more pairs of socks in your regular rotation that you're wearing. So, like, you're never going to eliminate the wear and tear entirely, but if you can distribute it over a bunch of different pairs of socks, it's not going to be as noticeable as fast as if you only have like one or two pairs of hand knit socks that you're constantly wearing. So that is the first tip in terms of wearing, is that frequency matters. Like the more you wear the socks, the more they're going to break down over time. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to durability in wearing your socks is that not every environment you find your feet in is an ideal environment for wearing hand knit socks. And so I have a couple of real life examples of ways that I have learned this lesson myself. And number one, I have found that I have a couple pairs of shoes that are just not suited to wearing my hand knit socks for whatever reason. I don't know if it is a coarse sole or what's going on, but they just want to like eat up the bottom of my socks. And this one right here is the worst offender. It's just a plain old like nondescript black slip on, but if I wear hand knit socks with these things for even just like 15, 30 minutes or whatever, like not a lot of time at all, when I take the sock out of the shoe, the bottom of the sock is just covered in pills. And now pilling is something that you're probably going to encounter as you wear and care for your socks over time. In general, but it shouldn't be a matter of like your socks go into the shoe relatively pill free and come out covered in pills. But for whatever reason, these little guys really love to mess up the bottoms of my hand knit socks. And so finally, I just had to learn that this particular pair of shoes and another pair of shoes I have are just not going to be great for wearing socks in general, or wearing hand knit socks in general. Something about the fit, something about the materials that they're made out of. There are just some shoes that are going to eat your hand knit socks, and it's best to identify and avoid those as soon as you can. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the bare floor is surprisingly hard on socks. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like I never like go around just wearing socks around my house, but that can actually contribute a lot to the wear and tear on your socks. Walking on the hard surfaces, whether it's hardwood, tile, whatever you're walking on, whatever sort of floor you have, is going to be harder than the soles of your shoes. And so your socks are the bottom of your socks are going to bear more brunt and take more abrasion and friction when you're walking on those hard surfaces without like the sole of a shoe to cushion them. And so, like I said, it's not like I never wear socks around my house without wearing shoes, but that is something also to keep in mind, is that in general, walking without shoes in your hand knit socks is going to wear them down faster than wearing them in shoes. Finally, today I want to talk a little bit about repairs and how they play into this idea of durability. And I know that you might be thinking, well, if my socks are durable, why would I ever need to repair them? They're not going to get holes in them in the first place. But hopefully, by this point in the video, like I've been able to convey the fact that there's no escaping all wear and tear on your socks. Like they're going to have durability issues eventually. And so it pays to know a few basic repair techniques so that when the time comes to fix them, you actually can fix them and sort of like give them a little jump start or a restart in terms of their durability. Now, in terms of specific techniques, I am going to link to some videos that I like for sock repairs, simply because it's not really this kind of video. It's not for the scope of this video. This is more about a general discussion and advice thing. So I will leave some specific technique ideas in the description below. But my advice for repairing your socks is do it sooner rather than later. Do it as soon as you see part of the sock is starting to thin versus when you see a full-blown actual hole in your sock. And that is simply to save yourself some time and some sanity, because while it's absolutely possible if you leave a section until it develops a full-blown hole, it's absolutely possible to fix that. There's nothing stopping you from fixing a full-blown hole, but it is just going to be so much faster and so much easier to fix if you are sort of reinforcing a thinned out piece of yarn versus like completely filling a section that is empty because there's a hole in it now. So that is my advice for repairs, is learn how to do it right now. Go ahead and just get it figured out so that you have it in your back pocket when the time comes, because the time will come. Like even if you're perfectly meticulous with, caring for your socks and their durability, they are going to develop holes eventually. And so it's nice to know what to do before things get really bad, when it's still kind of easy to fix the problem versus having to go just fully ham and completely recreate a piece of fabric because there's a full-blown hole in your sock. Alrighty, well there you have it. That is our discussion on caring for your hand knit socks. And I hope that I have left you with some ideas to try out. I hope that I have given you some new questions to ask about your own sock projects, because that is ultimately the goal for this video and a lot of the instructional videos I put out, is not necessarily to show you the one true way of how to do things, but to show you that it's all about like asking questions and making trade-offs based on your own desires for your project and your own goals and what you're willing to put up with in the case of like washing and caring for these socks. So I hope that I have not left you with the impression that I know the right way, and if you're not doing it my way, you're doing it wrong. I hope instead that I have left you with some like ideas to explore in your own knitting and the care of your own socks, so that you can find the method that works great for you. And one final reminder, if you're like me, if durable socks are your white whale and you are really interested in all of this longevity talk, I'm currently working on a pattern and guide for making durable socks. And if that is something that you would like to test, or that you want to know when it releases or when it has updates, I would highly encourage you to go to my website, AndalusiaKnits.com, and sign up for the mailing list, because all those sorts of discussions and announcements are going to be taking place there first. But that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!